There we go. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. My name is Linda Peterson, and welcome to the Real Estate Investing for the Win webinar series. I'm so excited to have you here. And go ahead and chat in the chat box if you have any questions, any comments. I'd love to engage with you. So today we're going to be talking about rehabbing. And when I started figuring out rehabbing, I realized that there's way too much to cover in 1 hour. So this is part one of a multi-part series. We'll see how many parts it needs to really give you the context and the content that you need to be successful in rehabbing. And the reality is that rehabbing can be different by area. So I've traveled the nation and taught investors how to, evaluate for rehabs and do repair estimates. And, here in Central Texas, we don't have basements, so it's not part of my repair estimate. So you'll have to kind of factor that in. We don't have boilers. We don't have some of the things that other places have out in California. I know they've got unique things out there, especially with hillside views, view rights, and also with sometimes endangered species and state by state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction criteria. So I'm going to cover what we have here, and you'll just have to tweak the way that works for you. So today the plan is actually my hair is starting to get longer, guys. So sorry if I'm like messing with it. I had to cut it short, and so I love long hair, so I'm happy it's getting there. So today we're going to talk about rehabbing for residential properties, but I'm going to try to just at a high level talk about rehab and then deep dive into creating your repair estimate. It's not really the first thing in the process, but what I found is it's the first thing that people want to know and understand before they even go try to look at a property and negotiate a property. So I figured instead of keeping you in suspense, I would actually deep dive into the repair estimates. Rehabs have a full spectrum of what they can cover. So I'll kind of talk through that, and then you'll have to figure out how to piece it in for whatever property you're looking at. So at a super high level, what we're going to cover today is what is a rehab, why rehab, what is the rehabbing process at a high level, examples of properties that need to be rehabbed, exit strategies, and then estimating repairs as a deep dive. So hopefully this aligns with what you're hoping to get out of today's webinar. So what is a rehab? Super high level, make sure we're all on the same page. Rehabs is short for rehabilitation, right? And so this time we're rehabilitating a property, a house, residential home. So it refers to purchasing a distressed or outdated residential property, renovating it, and then either selling it for a profit or renting it out. So I will say that just a little ninja tip. Yeah, anytime that you are dealing with a seller, don't use the word distressed. They don't know what that means. So instead, describe what distressed means. And we'll talk through some examples in just a minute. So the goal is to increase the property's value by making improvements such as structural repairs, cosmetic updates, or system upgrades like electrical, plumbing, or HVAC. So you also need to make sure that you're in a market where there's enough room for the value to cover the cost to repair. And I say that because I was kind of shocked and realized to learn, and it makes sense now that I know, but when you don't know what you don't know, right? So I was actually traveling, and one time I went to Mississippi to help teach investors, and we were walking properties and doing repair estimates. And one house, really needed a lot of TLC. It had mold damage. It had some other issues. And by the time I got down to doing the repair estimate, even if the seller gave us the house for free, we would have lost money because the cost to do the repairs on that house was more than the potential ARV after repair value. So you need to make sure that you're doing an area that you can make money on. So always focus on your exit strategy, because you can make a ton of money in this business. But as we talked about in the wholesaling webinar, wholesaling is less risk. Rehabbing can take on more risk because you can lose money. You can make a lot of money, but you can lose money. And so just factor those in, and the more that you can set up before you even purchase the property, the better you are off. I'd rather wait for and not be desperate and wait for a good deal to come across than take on a deal that I could potentially lose money on. All right. So why rehab? why rehab? So really it creates a win-win-win-win-win. Did I say that enough times? So, right, it helps the seller out of a distressed home, right? We've had homeowners, for example, who were living in a rat infested, bed bug infested, yellow jacket infested home, and they couldn't afford to fix it up. They couldn't afford to make the loan payments, and they couldn't afford to move. They were literally stuck in that house. They had equity, but they were stuck in that house and had no other option. So literally, we were told that we were angel sent from God because we helped them solve their problem that nobody else could. The bank didn't want to solve it. They didn't have family that could solve it, right? And it needed more than just let me buy your house and fix it up. They needed a problem to solve, and so that's a beautiful piece. So maybe I'll do another webinar on unique selling propositions, ways that we can really help these homeowners out of tough situations, and what we can offer that's different than a realtor. So Scott and Nita, help me remember that one. All right. So create jobs for contractors, right? Helping the economy, creates a beautiful home for a new family, creates additional income for the city by increasing the value, AKA taxes, and then creates income for you and your family. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins. So I should have added another one at the top. There you go. So before and afters, right? So before and afters, this was a house that we did and it looked okay. On the left side, you can see it could have been rental level, but in that area, there was a huge demand for higher end. And so you can see the difference on the right-hand side of what we did with that home. And that was what is demanded in that area. And so it's what we call gentrification, right? It's updating and it's making new for the specific clientele, right? I'm also going to talk about what do you want to focus on when you're looking for your rehabs? Because garbage in, garbage out, right? I'd rather gold in, gold out. There you go. So the rehabbing process, right, typically involves acquiring the property, right? So investors buy a home often at a discount because it needs significant repairs. And I will say that I'm not a low ball offer person, right? I offer fair offers based on the risk, the work, and the risk associated with that house. Right. So I don't just throw out a whole bunch of lowball offers. I'm a little bit more surgical in my approach. Renovating, this can range from cosmetic things like painting and landscaping to major renovations such as updating kitchens, bathrooms, or even fixing foundation. I would even call doing additions, right? So if I've got a 2-1 and I convert it into a 3-2, right? I would consider that a rehab with an addition, not necessarily a new build. So selling or renting. So after the rehab, investors either sell the home at a high price and rent it out at a higher price, and then it depends on their strategy. So rehab projects can be great for investors who are skilled at project management or can afford to hire contractors to make the necessary repairs. So we'll dig into this. So which properties are the ones that you want to focus on if you want to rehab? Right. And so obviously you're looking for gentrifying neighborhoods. Gentrifying means that it's turning over, right? It's you may have a whole bunch of old houses, nobody's doing it yet, and then you start to see one get updated and another get updated. So now that those houses are old enough, right, that now and there's demand to buy, that it's now creating this need to gentrify those areas. And we are investors, not gamblers. So we don't want to be the first, right? It's not a what if. It can be a what if you've got enough money to sit and wait until the what if comes about. But if you're looking to make money now, you're looking for things that are happening now, okay? And you don't want to be the first one. You want proven comps, sold proven comps for the price that you're looking for that will prove your property, okay? So I would say typically 30 years or older is when you get into that price or that point where houses really need more work. Properties that have damage, neglect, or are outdated, and look for areas with demand that support your exit strategy. So let's talk about your exit strategies for a second, right? So if you want to do a rental, right, I would still say that you need to be structurally and mechanically sound, right? But then your finish are rental level comps. So you would look at all of the rentals that would say, okay, I'm looking to rent in this area for this price point. What level of finish do those have to get that money? That's what I'm going to do. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to live in this house. So it's not about your taste and it's not about your preferences. Because the problem is that if you make it too nice, you potentially make it so that the people who would live there can no longer live there because they can't afford it. So if my rental comps all have popcorn ceilings, I don't care if I hate popcorn ceilings, I'm going to leave the popcorn ceilings, because if I put in the cost to remove it and I now have to charge more, now those people can no longer afford it and I'm doing a disservice. So remember that you're not going to live in this house. You're going to do it for the purpose of those people. And it might be easier for me to say that because I appreciate design, but I'm not a designer by choice. And so for me, it's like, it's easier to do it that way. But you also want to make sure that it's structurally and mechanically sound. So while you're in there, while you've got the walls open or while you've got the work being done, the floor is ripped up, that's the time to fix it, because if not, it'll come back to bite you. And then a flip, still, you need to make sure that it's structurally and mechanically sound first, before you do your finish to the rental level comps. And I say this because I have seen investors who had a certain budget, right? And did not put that budget towards the structural or mechanical issues of that house, but instead chose to put that money into the finishes and having the nice finish. And the problem is that the foundation wasn't straight, or there were other mechanical issues. And it didn't matter how much, I think what they call it is putting lipstick on a pig, right? It doesn't matter how nice your finish is if it's not safe and structurally sound. I remember another house, one of our realtors was telling me that they were walking in and it felt like it was on stilts and they weren't confident that it was going to support their weight. And that's a scary thought. And you're never going to sell a house like that. So do not buy it, right? If you can't do the structural mechanical that you need to do, that needs to happen. And I will add to that, if a seller does a unpermitted addition, do not take on their problem, right? You can help them solve their problem without taking on their problem, if you understand what I mean, right? I would give them advice on how to deal with it, but I don't buy it and take on the problem myself, right? And so the way I would negotiate an unpermitted addition is I would say, because it's unpermitted, because the local code and jurisdictions have not approved it, right? I cannot assume that it is up to code, and I may have to tear it down to build it new, to rebuild. So the way that I negotiate it is I assume that those square feet don't count. Okay. All right. So estimating repairs. Remember where you are in the process. Remember where you are in the process. When you are looking at a house, potentially buy it, you are not designing. You are not designing, right? So I'm not figuring out this wall is going to go over here and I'm going to put this kind of tile and I'm going to put this. And it's great to do that, but you may be wasting your time, effort, and energy on something that may never become a deal, right? So you're literally just estimating the repairs to create your budget. After you have it under contract, now this becomes your budget, right? You'll do your due diligence, but then once your budget, then you can design, right? And there's strategies for designing within a budget if you come up with surprises, and we'll get into that later. But right now, you are simply looking at how much money do I need to put into this house so that I can put in an offer. We're not designing. You're creating a budget to negotiate with. Understand what market you are in. Are you in a seller's market or are you in a buyer's market, right? Because and think about this for a second, go and put it in the chat. If I'm in a seller's market and if I'm in a buyer's market, would my repair assumptions be the same? Because we all make assumptions, right? I do. I know you do. When we go through a house, we typically say, oh, if we don't know, we're going to assume everything needs to be repaired, right? But if I assume everything needs to be repaired, what happens to my offer? My offer is lower. And if I'm in a hot seller's market, I'm never going to even get in the game. I'm never going to get in the game. But if I'm in a buyer's market, meaning that there are very few sellers or very very few buyers and a lot of sellers. So the buyer gets to be picky, right? There are very few buyers, so it's a buyer's market. So the buyers get to be picky, right? And the sellers are desperate and need to be more accommodating for the buyers, right? And so in that market, I may need to say, I'm going to assume everything's bad if I'm a buyer, and then pick the ones that are best. But in a seller's market, if I assume everything's bad, I'm never going to get into the game. And so remember the market that you're in. And so when you are new to this or not a construction expert, right? I would still say I'm not at all. I don't, and the code changes from area to area. So I would use my due diligence and my experts to tell me the stuff that I haven't figured out after I have it under contract, right? If you have the time, right? I would say in a hot seller's market, you do not have the time, right? Those properties go quickly. In a buyer's market, you have more time to do your due diligence, maybe before you even submit an offer, right? But I typically won't even waste my time until I know that the buyer and seller, that we're in the ballpark, right? So let me walk you through now in detail. So let's go live. Are you guys ready for a ninja tip? Here's a ninja tip. You can go to, if you don't have MLS access, right? You can go to Redfin, and then under filters, go down here where it says fixer upper and check it, right? So this is in Redfin. They have pre-selected themselves as fixer uppers, right? Of course, not everything's going to be on here, but it might be a quick way to find some. And so that's what I did here, right? And so I went through, you can look through these houses, like some of these need a lot of work. And for the purpose of this webinar, I'm not doing a hard project. I'm doing a simpler project, right? Because some projects can take time to really analyze, to really figure out, you know, to run the comps and to say, do I need to do an addition? Do I need to do this? I will give you another ninja tip. Why? When I am typically looking to negotiate with a seller, I'm negotiating based on the as is of the property. Meaning if it is a 2-1, I am looking to buy that property as a 2-1, right? Unless you're in a super hot seller's market, right? Because then you've got people who will buy it for more. So what that means is if that property has the potential to become a 3-2, I will still negotiate it based on a 2-1 with that upgrade, right? As my potential exit strategy. Because the reality is that I still have to confirm that I can do it with the city, that area can allow it, the trees can allow it. And there's still a lot of unknowns. So I will typically negotiate on the house as is, but then when I might do my repair estimate at my deal analyzer, which is what we're going to do next week, I may say, on this house, let me look at it, run the numbers as is with an addition, tear down new build as a rental, right? I'll look at that same house in different ways. So let's look at this one. So this is a house that I think you could say has been prehabbed, right? So it's a nice neighborhood. The outside is brick, which is beautiful. I don't see a ton of like foundation challenges. It doesn't have any flooring, which is easy, right? I don't have to deal with all of the demo. The bathroom's okay. It's probably builder grade. So I'd have to look in the comps and say, for retail, does that mean that I need a higher level finish? Or for rental, this would probably be great for rental, right? And here's another one. So and this right here, can anybody tell me what this is right here? It looks like a patch of new concrete. Can anybody tell me what that is? I'll give you a second to put it in the chat. So it needs all new flooring. Looks like it's got pretty good paint. Builder grade. Okay, so that tells me there's been some potential water damage right here. Look at this patch right here, and this patch right here, and this patch right here. right? Other than that, looks pretty good. I'd get the ducts evaluated. So to not keep you in suspense any longer, this right here means that they've done foundation work. So they cut into the foundation and they had to put up piers. So I would want to know what work they did and if it's got a warranty on it, right? I would also, because it is a slab foundation, I'd want to check all the water to make sure that none of the pipes broke as they moved the foundation, because obviously they had to, it was tilted, right? And so whenever they do that, sometimes windows can break and you can see that visually, but you'd want to make sure that the pipes are all good. And then, you know, if there was water, you'd want to check for mold and make sure that there isn't any residue there as well, right? So we're just going to assume that everything's been done correctly. Obviously, it needs a, it's got, like this door is missing. Maybe I could rehab them depending on the level of finish, right? So you can see here, it looks like it's got some potential issues here. I would want to know what's going on behind this wall and make sure that it doesn't have any damage there. Having wood right next to water is never a good thing. So I would probably replace that wood for long-term purposes, right? Okay, so I don't see, this looks like this mortar has been patched up. I don't know if it's right there as well. Other than that, it looks good, but I know that they did foundation work. So if we now look at, this is a 1,700, so 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,752 square feet. So let me walk you through my repair. And I'm telling you, I do it different than everybody else. And I'm going to try to post this right after this webinar into the Facebook group. If you don't see it, you can reach out to me and I'll send it to you. But understand this is for my market, so you'll need to adjust the numbers for your market. So let me walk you through this. So the way I set it up for me, because I'm a total geek, is that I put them in the order here that you'll actually do the work in. And it can adjust sometimes based on the permitting and the inspections and the work that you have to do, right? So if this is everything and you're doing a light cosmetic rehab, a lot of this won't apply. So let me walk you through the structure and then we'll walk through what's in it and then we'll apply that property here. So I put everything in, right? So property taxes, so it's number 0, right? Is it applicable here? So if I say yes, no, just yes, then this will pop up. Okay, that's the way I've got this structured. So, so how many, right? Is it in each, a per item, a square foot, lump sum? Is it a linear foot or square foot? So it's this number based on this, right? And then my cost on average, basically what I've spent, and then this will calculate this times this. So now if I look at other specialists, boundary tree topo survey. So if you're just rehabbing and you're not modifying the square foot of the house, you don't typically need a tree and topo, right? You will get a boundary survey when you buy it, and you typically get that done through the title company. And it basically says, this is the land I'm buying, this is the boundary of what I'm buying. Tree and topo is typically if I'm doing any modification. So topo is topography. Topo is topography, right? So how does the land move? And that's critically important if I'm adding on or if I'm doing a new build, right? Because I always have to pay attention to water. Water can be very damaging to a foundation. So that's very important. So architect, right? So designing the house, structural engineer will define the like the studs and for the roof and the pitch, right? And so they're important. Septic, if you aren't on city sewer, but you need a septic, you'll have to do a septic engineer. I've used them several times. A civil engineer maybe for a retaining wall. They will also do the grading, insurance, a manual J. This is for, I guess I can put this in there, manual J needed for building permits with regard to HVAC systems, right? So the manual J, some cities require you to put that, and you can do it online. You just put in a couple of information, you usually get that from your HVAC consultants, our construction contractor, and that will tell the load based on the house and what kind of system you need. And it gives the city the confidence that you're putting in the right system for that house. So permits, porta potties, demo, tree mitigation, I've had to do where I have to pay the city to mitigate the tree if I have to take it down. And it's either a cost or sometimes I have to plant for the diameter of the tree. Grading, right? So if I have to, if the land is like this and I have to grade it, there's cost for clearing the land, bulldozing it, and making it the grade that you need. And your engineers, specifically your civil engineer, and sometimes your architect will help define the grade that you need for the foundation, because all foundations have to be straight, right? And so you might have to grade the land around it. Stake and form survey. So basically, if I'm pouring a new foundation, so I put over here, like these are applicable really to new builds, possibly to additions, but really to new builds. So stake and form survey typically means that I am doing a new foundation. It's on this piece of land somewhere. Don't expect your contractor to get it right. So I'm going to get a survey company to actually put stakes based on the plans as to where exactly the corners of that house go, so that now I've got confidence that my contractor is going to put it right. I will tell you, it is worth the money. So plan it in the budget beforehand. Do not, I would never, and I'm telling you this, never assume that your contractor can do it right. Right? I always want a third party person checking for quality, because when you build up, right? Have you, my son just, my almost 5-year-old son just did a 274 piece Lego. And if you're building up and you've missed a step, right? Now you have to go backwards and build it. It's the same thing for a house, right? If you don't have it right, and they put the foundation and the corners slightly off, now it affects your frame. Now it affects your windows. It affects every piece in the house. All your mechanicals now need to be adjusted. You might have to go back for permits. So it's not worth it. It's not worth it, right? Spend the time in the planning, and it will save you a ton. And from every step to the next, double check quality, It makes a huge difference. Okay. So water connection and meter, new electrical pole if you need it. These are just prices that I've had to pay. If you are doing that, I would go talk to your local utility provider and get pricing from them, or your city and get pricing from them. Okay, so in this case, if you had to do a septic permit, in that, then you have to put in the septic system, right? So septic rough, and then I broke it up. So right here, septic rough, and then septic final here would be 7,500 and 7,500. So what I've been paying is 15,000, right? So I would do septic rough, pay them typically 50%, and then at the septic final, pay them another 50%. And whenever you are doing, if you are doing a septic tank, you might have to do your septic tank before your foundation, right? Because they physically may not be able to get that tank into that area. So pay attention to that sequence as well. Okay, so foundation, right? You pour your foundation, and then actually before you pour the foundation, right? You might do your foundation rough. You get any plumbing, and if you need electrical, like to an island or something underneath, before you pour the foundation, you have to get inspections between. Make sure that any mechanicals that go in the foundation are done before they actually pour the concrete. And so that's why this order. So new construction framing, I basically have walls and roof material at $20 a square. It could be higher with inflation, right? And especially we've got craziness going on in the world. Labor, so I'm all in for $40 a square for framing, new framing. Windows, right? This another piece to understand, these numbers are just labor and material. They do not include any kind of GC fee, okay? Exterior doors, garage door, French door, fiber cement setting, hardy plank, right? Depends on whatever kind of siding you're doing. But I typically will get the framer to do the framing and the siding and the windows and the exterior doors. I will get them to do all this because if the frame isn't right, then the person putting in the window is going to blame the framer and the framer is going to blame the window. Like they play this pointing game. So I'd rather have the same contractor do all of those that affect each other together. Okay. I always do architectural shingles here, although I'll be doing metal soon. HVAC rough, again, so HVAC rough and HVAC trim, I've got it broken out in 2 phases. Plumbing rough, so I've got plumbing up here for foundation, plumbing rough, and plumbing trim, right? So, and then they typically, so in this case, right, I've got 15,500 for 1530 square foot home-ish. And this is the breakout. So usually, I think it's 40, 20, 20, something like that is the way we pay them. And then for electrical, rough, and trim, you may have some minor in the foundation as well. So exterior paint, tub toilet fixtures, tankless water heater, insulation, drywall, right? So sheetrock, tape float texture, depending on how you do it in your area, interior paint, interior doors, right? And this may change if you're doing hollow or solid core. New trim baseboards, cabinets, countertops, shelving, touch-up caulking, flooring for the entire house. So I usually have it about $5 a square, regardless if it's tile, regardless if it's carpet or vinyl plank, right? That's the new thing. Vinyl plank is pretty amazing. You might have to adjust up and down, but recognize that your flooring on the ground is very different. Like if you put tile here is very different than your wall because of it has to stick and you've got to space it and it can fall. Your tile on your walls could be, $10, $15 a square or up versus on the ground. It's much easier. And then also note that the more intricate your design, the more expensive it is, right? So if you think about somebody laying tile, if they've got a whole bunch of little pieces to put together and make sure that they're aligned, you have to pay a higher skill level to do it, and it takes a lot longer. So your cost is going to be higher versus a bigger piece of tile. So if you want to have some fancy design, right, maybe think about some bigger pieces of tile and maybe a little strip of accent instead so that it's not so complex. The more complex your design, the higher skill you need, the higher you need to pay. Okay. Appliances, you can usually do a package. And I would say that that's probably a lot higher now. I was just looking at ovens. And then, so this again ties with your mechanical MEPs, right? Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, lighting fixtures, septic system finish, driveway, sidewalk if you need it, beautification, right? So that's landscaping if you need to put in to grade, and this is more of a fine grade versus a rough grade, and a sprinkler system or sod, wood fencing, mirrors, mailbox, gutters, cleaning, maintenance. In my areas, I have to put in a septic maintenance plan, like a 2-year plan after I finish it. Trash, a GC fee can typically be about 20, 25%. If you're in Texas, you don't have to have a license to be a GC, but you should know what you're doing. So you can leverage GCs, or you can also, one thing that I like to do, especially if you're learning, here's another ninja tip, is I like to have, I like to have like a third party inspector who is investor friendly, come look at the phases, right? And do a quality check before I pay. And so I might put it in my contract. Payment will be done when it passes inspection and from the city for permitting and my inspector. And the reason why I say that is because the city will not protect you if something isn't necessarily done correctly. especially if it's cosmetic, they don't care about that, right? If it's not straight, they don't necessarily care. Like if your cabinets aren't straight, right? If they're going to fall apart, because they care about the mechanical and structure to the code. So that's why having another third party inspector also, and you can pay them like literally $50, $150 for a trip, and then they'll tell you the list, and then you get the contractors to fix it. And so those people become the bad guys, and you're like, okay, we're on the same team. How do we solve this together? I want to pay you, so let's get it done, right? I don't get into these matches with my guys at all, right? But I hold the quality line, and I've learned that lesson so many times. Okay, so let's look at this house, and let me know, put it in chat if you have any questions on this form. But as I told you, it's the way that I do it. And so I'm kind of a geek when it comes to project management. And we'll build this out as we go through, because you'll see I go from I to V, and it's because I actually say, okay, here's my budget, here's my bids. And then if you've got a hard money lender, right, here are my draws, here's what I've drawn, what's my actual. And I like to track and from one project to the next so that I know the latest on the cost for market, right? And where I'm going over and where I'm able to save. And if I'm going over budget, right, how can I get creative? So I go into this much deeper. So let's look at this house. So I'm going to see if we can do a split screen here. I'm going to try here to do a split screen. Okay, so we know that we need all flooring, right? So if I do, what do we need? So from the outside, it looks like I might need minor landscaping, right? Looks like it needs some trim work here, right? Can you see that? So I might put a little bit for siding. I can't tell too much on the roof, but I can see if they made any comments. See if I can move this thing out of my way. There we go. Okay. I can see if they made any comments that give me any indication, right? No, they haven't given me anything. Okay. So I can make assumptions, and then I can go out there and look at the house to see if I'm even in the ballpark, right? And then when I go to the house, then I can look, and if I can't do it myself, then I can also always get a third party to inspect it for me and make sure that things are working. So I would assume I need all new flooring, all new baseboards and trim, maybe some blinds here. I don't know if I need to replace the windows. I don't know if it's just this window, but that looks like it's crooked. Okay. Perfect. It already has the foundation work, so I would definitely want the warranty on it. I definitely need a couple of doors here. Do you see how that door is missing? Looks like this door is, can't tell if it's missing. So maybe I need to replace the doors. It would depend on the comp. So if let's say for today's purposes, I'm going to assume that this is going to be a rental, right? So I'm not going to make high-end doors, but maybe I do replace all the doors because this one's missing as well. Obviously there's some tile work, and then there's I would probably put vinyl planks. I'd typically on the first floor, I would put all vinyl planks, and on the second floor in the stairs, I would put carpet, except for in the bathrooms, I would put the same vinyl plank. Is where I'm at today. Yeah, so it looks like it's already been painted, but I'd probably put in a little bit for paint. The way that we usually do our properties is we make all the walls and all the trim like white, and then we add in color with the cabinets, maybe the flooring, and then the staging is what really brings in the color. I would definitely update some of these light fixtures. And then we're going to need, I would put in some plumbing work here, some sheetrock, tape flow texture patches, right? Assuming that most of this works. I would want new vent covers because those look pretty dark. I would have to have the HVAC system checked out. So maybe do a service on it. I'd find out if the washing machine comes with it, right? This fridge, it seemed like it needed a little bit of work, and maybe just it can be rehab, but it's missing these door handles on it. Obviously there's no installed microwave, so maybe I install a microwave on top. for appliance kit. So I might do a minor kit on that. We could assume that all the cabinets need to be redone, countertop and tile backsplash. And then if we get in there and find out that there's not enough budget for that, then I would start to dig in and say, can I save some of this? Can I refinish these cabinets? Can I find a matching door? Can I sand them and restain them or paint them, right? To fit for that neighborhood and for that kind of property. So I would probably include some outlet covers. So we can automatically, and we need some rehab here, right? Okay, so let's take a stab at this house now, right? So obviously, yes, we need that. I'm going to say just the boundary, and let me break this out for you guys. If you're going to need a boundary, if you're going to need all of it, get them all done at the same time. So if it's just the boundary, you might be at like 450. Okay, so tree topo, so architect, no, right? So do I need permits? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What do you guys think? Do I need a permit for this house based on this work? Do I need a permit? Definitely need builder's risk. What do you guys think? Porta potty, yes, for my guys while I'm working there. Demo's already done. Tree mitigation, no. Grading, safe form, no, 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 right? Plumbing for the entire house. So let's look at plumbing as a, let's add this in here. Instead of plumbing for the entire house, maybe this is patch plumbing work. Right, so in this case, maybe it'll be, say 5,000 times 40% for this one. So then I might say yes there, right? Because that's the down payment. And so going back to, am I going to need permits for this house? If I'm just doing cosmetic, I don't need permits, right? If I'm opening up any walls or doing any structural, foundational, mechanical, right? More than just cosmetic, yes, I need permits. But for this house, my guess is that from the looks of it, it's just cosmetic. Is the 18, this one here. Oh, porta potty quantity of months. Thank you for asking that. Months, right? I'll just clarify that. So if I were to guess on this project from the time that I'm, and porta potty is just the time I'm doing the work, not the time that I'm buying, planning, you know, staging, pictures, listing, right? All that stuff. If I would do a porta potty just for the months that I'm doing construction work, because this one is a cosmetic one, I would hope to be done. If I have my plans really buttoned up, I would hope to be done in 2 months. So in that case, I would probably just need, let's just be conservative and say 3, right? For just construction. And good point. So thank you. No, I might need some windows, right? So because it is a 1,700 square foot house, it might have 13. So if I assume high, that's fine. I will say that it is easier to do windows when I'm down to the studs. If I'm rehabbing but leaving all of the sheetrock, I'd probably put a higher price, right? Does that make sense? Right? Because now I'm taking out existing, I'm trying not to damage much. I'm putting it back in and then I'm having to do some patchwork. But I'm going to put the patchwork into the sheetrock one. So exterior doors, garage door. I didn't see that it needed it. Fiber cement. So we did see some parts that needed it. So yes, but not all 1,530 square feet. I think it was 1,700. What was it? 1,752. So I'm going to put it up here, 1752. Okay. This should all be linked, and I'll have it linked before I send it out. Because when I have it literally in a Google sheet, and then when I downloaded it it didn't save all the formulas, so I'll put them in before I share it. Okay, so what was I saying here? Fiber cement. So I would probably guess like 10%. So I'm assuming it's in the back. I didn't really see pictures of the back of the house, but for the purpose of this webinar, I would assume that it's 4 sides brick. And so probably say 20%, I'll be conservative, 20%. So I would say equals 20% times that, right? So about 350 square feet of that, but then I'm gonna have to paint it, right? I'm gonna caulk it and paint it as well. So roof, I don't know, but my guess is that it probably is fine. HVAC system, new HVAC system, and here we're going to add service, right? Just a service. Servicing existing HVAC system. So then yes, and that's probably about 500 or so. Okay, so plumbing, I can also add in instead of HVAC, electrical. I'd probably put 3,000 for that, right? Because wiring is expensive, and then crawling through. I've like on one of the latest houses that I did, I wanted to have in the carport, I wanted to have a charging station, and just the wire itself from the breaker panel to the carport was $1,000. So things have gotten expensive. Okay, so painting exterior. So yes, but again, it's going to be this same thing here. That did not work. Oh, it's because I need to make this an F4. Sorry. So it makes it a cell that doesn't move. Okay. So tubs, toilet fixtures, I wanted to say yes, because it's always gross to do that, to not change. And so we said it was 3 bathrooms, tankless water heater. So I might want to upgrade. Yes. Insulation, I think that was fine. Yes, for this, but it's really going to be more of patchwork. So I might do the same thing that we did here, but say I'll do it for, yeah, so about 20% of the sheetrock on the inside. Indoor painting, I'm just going to say yes, because I can't tell. Interior doors, yes. I'm going to assume 12. Baseboard trim, yes. But this is, it's going to be, so the way that this formula works is based on linear feet. So, but I'm not doing trim on all of it. And again, my formula didn't come down. So it's typically for, you can do based on the square feet of the house, you can do, what was it? 0.33 equals this times 0.33, right? Is how many linear feet, right? How many linear feet? And so I have to account for the walls on the inside. Okay, so cabinets, we said yes for that, right? Countertops and sinks, yes. Shelving, touch-up caulking, yes. It had some, right? So I'm creating a budget, and once I figure out if I need to modify now, I'll know which things I can drill into and really go figure out if I can do less of. So flooring, absolutely yes. Backsplash, I'm going to say yes, because we saw some work that needed to be done there. Appliances, yes, we said that we were going to do a new package. Lighting fixtures, I would probably do all new lighting fixtures, yes. Don't need septic, don't need driveways. I might put in some for landscaping, but I might make it less because it looked okay. Grading and sprinkler system, I don't think so. Wood fence, I didn't pay attention. I don't know if you guys saw it. But I would, let's see if we can tell from the pictures. I don't know. I didn't even see the fencing. I was so focused on the house. Tell me if you see it. Nope, nothing about the yard. I don't know. But I'm going to assume it's okay. Mirrors and mailbox. You can put yes, gutters, assume it's got it, cleaning, absolutely. If I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing, and and I will say that if you're on the lower price point and it's a less of a rehab, your contingency might be lower. And if you're experienced, right? If I'm inexperienced, if I'm dealing with a bigger house, an older house, if I'm having to do more repairs, which equals higher probability of surprises, then I would have a higher contingency. So right there on this house, if I were to do it up nice, I'd probably be at nearly 100,000. And so at this point, if I'm now looking at a repair rental level, I would go down from there. But you can see that the cost for doing things is much higher now than it used to be. And so I need to factor those things in. If I can be my own GC, then I can take that out, right? And I can potentially reduce these things, like if I can keep the existing cabinets and then I can, right, so that one's a pretty expensive one. Is contingency for over budget. Contingency is for surprises. Yeah. So it's for surprises. It's you get out there and things don't, prices go up, or the supply is not available, or you take longer because of unknowns, like weather. You want to factor in time, and you want to factor in some. So what time of the year are you building and doing this work? So contingencies for all the unknowns that you haven't thought about. Okay. And so that should give you a super high level of how to do repair estimate. Again, if you notice, I'm not designing as I went through this, right? I'm not designing as I go through this, right? If I know I needed new walls, I would probably assume $20 a square foot or $40 a square foot. And then you'd have to add in your sheetrock tape flow texture. If I was doing a new build, right? I'm just factoring in labor and material, I would probably assume, right, like 250, 350 a square foot. And then if I'm going really high end, nice end, it can go up from there. And then if you, like, we've had a custom home builder in the past where they did cost plus 20%. And so now it's labor material plus 20% as a builder. And it was easier. They were very transparent on the cost. And so it was easy for me to really budget, but basically all in, depends on if you're having to do like, and I might be able to do this as a future series where we've done a tear down, new build, but I'm doing 2 houses. So I'm having to deal with taps from 1 meter to 2 meters. And you can factor in those things separately. But at a super high level, I would start here, right? And of course, I'm including property taxes in this, which normally on your deal analyzer, you completely include that separately, but that's part of your holding costs, right? I haven't put in money costs, selling costs in here. But if I look at just if I take out the taxes, right now it's down to 73, and you can see how you can now shape it. But I'm never going to try to force the numbers to something that it's not just because I want it bad enough. So at a high level, like if I were going to look at this house, right, they're asking 298. My guess for this area is it's probably depends on the market. Right now, the market is with interest rates going up, unknowns in the market, inflation. People are kind of leery of buying right now. We've got higher days on market that they're not going to be overpriced. And so this has been on the market for 17 days. So it's still fairly new. So now I'm going to have potential competition, right? So you can take the strategy of I'm going to be first to hit it, or I'm going to look for ones that nobody else wants because it's sat on the market. When we're doing our deal analyzer next week, we're also going to be looking for distressed and motivated, because if somebody's had their house on the market for 365 days, you might think that they are motivated, but maybe they're not. They're just stubborn and want a specific price. And so we're going to look at ways to know if they're motivated when we're looking at that. So maybe I can actually get into some MLS and share with you what you can see from online that will tell you distress and motivation. So join me for next week. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And also in the Facebook group, Real Estate Investing for the Win, if there's any topics or anything specific you want me to cover next week or on any future webinars, let me know, and I can make sure I include that in my presentation as well. So thank you all for joining today. And let me go back to the PowerPoint. So I'm back on to where we were. So if you're looking to invest right now, we do have potential deals for you to invest with, so reach out to us. I will tell you that this picture right here, it's snip of 40 acres that we just bought. It was 43, but we sold the corner for a convenience store, so we bought 40 acres. And this lake right here, I'm like so excited about this lake because it's right off of in Austin, in Bastrop, off of 71. And back in the day, they were using part of this land as a rock quarry to create the road base for the highway. And about 40, 45 feet down, they hit a spring. And so now it's a spring-fed lake. So it's a 3.5 acre lake, and it actually has fish in it. So we just caught some perch in it. So it's super exciting. And we're planning a 260 slot RV park. So we just found out that the Harry Potter Forbidden Forest experience is literally behind us, and Elon Musk is building what is it, Boring, SpaceX, and now going to be the X headquarters right around there. So a lot happening in that area, and we're so excited to be a part of it. And so next week, as I said, today we're learning about rehabbing, deep dive into estimating repairs. In part 2, we'll cover how to find rehabs and how to analyze deals. So hope you can join us next Friday at noon Central, and have a blessed day. Thank you for joining me.